right, good afternoon. We'll go ahead and call to order the regular meeting for the City of Murfreesboro Board of Zoning Appeals for December 17, 2015. First item on the agenda is the consideration of minutes from our regular meeting back on November 19th. Those minutes were included with our agenda materials. Any corrections, changes to those minutes?
No.
All right, if not, they'll stand approved as presented. And we'll next consider special use permit requests. First, there is application Z15083 by Mr. Jonathan Redmond. He's requesting a special use permit in order to allow a home occupation barbershop, and this is for property located in a single-family residential RS-15 zone located at 1907 Jones Boulevard. All right, Mr. Anthony, if you review that application for us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, board members. The applicant recently purchased a house at 1907 Jones Boulevard. This house sits at the corner of Jones and Elliott Drive. It's zoned RS-15, and it's surrounded by a lot of RS-15 and some RS-10 as well. The applicant wishes to use a portion of the garage in the house for a one-chair barber shop. I'm going to go through some photos for you, if that's okay, as we look at this. Looking at the house at the corner of Jones and Elliott, you can see the driveway comes off of Elliott Drive, which is a local residential street. The garage would be this portion of the house on the northern side. So again, it's accessed via Elliott as opposed to via Jones. The applicant intends to convert the existing two-car garage into a one-car garage and utilize the remainder of the garage for the barbershop. Customers would enter the barbershop through an existing door on the driveway. The only exterior changes would be replacing the two-car garage door with a single-car garage door and a window. The window would look into the shop. Customers would park in the driveway, and based on staff assessment, there does appear to be adequate space for the vehicles belonging to both the applicant as well as for one customer vehicle. The applicant would only see one customer at a time. And he's also indicated that he works on weekdays during daytime hours primarily. If the board approves the special use permit application, staff does propose 5 conditions. The first is that all client visits are to be by appointment only. Condition 2, days and hours of operation shall be limited to those requested by the applicant in the request letter. 3, all appointments shall end no later than 6 p.m. 4, the applicant shall arrange appointment times such that no appointment begins less than 15 minutes after another appointment ends. And 5, any signage placed on the subject property shall adhere to the standards set forth in the city's sign ordinance. So again, if you approve the special use permit, staff does ask that you include those conditions as well. We can answer any questions that you have. I'll be happy to go through more photographs if you would like, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Anthony. Questions for Mr. Anthony? Now, I was flipping through these materials. Did you show the pictures you said?
Yeah, I'll be happy to go through those if you'd like. We can put them up.
Okay.
Okay. First, this is an exhibit that was provided by the applicant. This shows how the garage will be reconfigured. It's a little difficult to see here. But if you look in this diagram in the upper left-hand corner, where I'm outlining here with the arrow, this is the current garage, which holds 2 vehicles. The applicant wants to split that garage. The portion closest to the remainder of the house would remain a garage, while this portion closest to the outside wall, that's where the shop would be. Down toward the middle of that page shows the new configuration on the house on the outside with the single garage door and then the window. And keeping in mind that the entry door into the shop would be on the left-hand side there. The next photo, this is a photo of the house from the corner of Jones and Elliott. The house sits sort of catty-cornered facing the corner itself. This is a view from Elliott looking down the driveway to the house. That door that you can see in that photograph, that's the door that would access the barber shop. This is a closer photo, again showing the door that would access the barber shop, as well as that double garage door that would become just a single door. This is again on the driveway, looking at neighboring properties. So the properties in the background, these would be the houses that are behind the applicant. You can see that the next door neighbor, the house right next door, is pretty close to the property line. The fence is along the property line. The driveway goes right up to the fence. So there's not a whole lot of distance there. And certainly the zoning ordinance gives you the ability, if you so required, any kind of buffering between those. I'm not sure if the resident next door would be interested in that. And I think that's it on photographs, sir.
All right. So the request is, or you're suggesting, I think, in staff comments, to limit the days and hours of operation to that was requested by the applicant in the request letter. And my understanding is he's requested Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 9 to 5.
That is what he indicated in the letter. If he has something different, he can certainly address the board.
Okay. Now, your staff comments then also says all appointments shall end no later than 6 p.m., but he says 5 in his letter.
Sure. So if you're taking an appointment at 5, it should be over. It should be over by 6 p.m. That's looking back at other barber and beauty shops that have been placed in residential neighborhoods. That seems to be a standard condition that's been utilized before the 6 p.m. cutoff.
Okay. All right. Mr. Redmond, anything you'd like to add to the application, sir? Nope. Okay. All right, then at this time we'll conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, if you would please come forward to the podium, state your name and your address for us, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Robert Fletcher. Live at 907 Elliott, the house closest to Mr. Redmond's property. The picture you had that showed our house, would you mind putting that up once again?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
This is the aerial photograph. Do you want the one down the driveway?
Yes, sir, where you can see the edge of our house. Yes, sir, that
Yep.
one. What my wife and I are respectfully requesting is that you deny this application. As you can see from the picture, that's my son's bedroom. That's going to be really...
On the right side of the picture?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry. On the right side of the picture, yes, sir.
This window.
Okay.
That's my son's bedroom. Our bedroom is right next to it. I didn't bother taking a tape measure out, but it's going to be really close to where they're going to be parking, and they're coming in and out. In general, we anticipate this is going to increase the road traffic, the street traffic on Elliott. You may have noticed from the picture where the stop sign's at, it's going to be right there at that intersection, or that T into Jones. We've seen an increase of traffic as Jones has gotten busier. We've seen an increase of traffic on Elliott Drive and the specific section between Elliott and Hamilton. People use that as a cut through. In my humble opinion, I think the traffic's going to increase even more. Not so much for the business. I think it will on that. But when you widen Jones, people are going to see that as a more favorable access out to Northfield and then on toward downtown. Again, being a residential neighborhood, we've got a few children that play on the street. The traffic's already pretty steady. We think this business is going to increase the traffic. As I stated earlier, Mr. Redmond's business is going to be right outside of our bedroom window, right next to us. I question the amount of parking that's going to be available for the customers. Even if they're coming in onesies and twosies, they're going to have to pull in and then back out. I think that's going to cause a little bit of safety concern as well. Overall, we live there. It's a residential neighborhood. I think that subdivision is what, 1960s? It's been quite a while. There's quite a few homeowners I spoke to up and down the street that for various reasons could not come today. Some older residents in their late 80s, 90s. We've got a fair amount of rentals there. I spoke to them as well. Like most folks, in the middle of the day, they're working. Unfortunately, they couldn't show up as well. Luckily, with my schedule, I could. It wasn't a big hassle. But we'd like to see the neighborhood as a neighborhood, as what it was intended for, and the reason that we live there. It's a residential neighborhood, and again, I'd appreciate it if you guys could deny that appeal, or excuse me, deny that application and keep it all residential.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher.
Do you have any questions for me, sir?
Any questions?
Thank you. Appreciate
We're
it.
good. Thank you.
My name is Tom Parrish. I live at 614 Woodmont. And also I own a residence at 615 Woodmont, and also a residence at 1027 Hillcrest. And this area is a residential neighborhood. And the thing I'm saying is, I don't mind him cutting hair there, but if you were to grant this permit to cut this hair in this area, then if I had a tenant or somebody come to me and wanted to do this one of my rental properties, you would have to do that too. I mean, what's one for good, one for the other. And I just want to make sure that you consider that before that you pass this on. That's all I've got to say.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Parrish. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against the application? All right. Then we'll declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for some questions. I know I've got a question for Mr. Redmond. Mr. Redmond, if you can come up to the podium, please. I just got a question or two for you. First of all, how long have you owned the property?
About 30 days ago.
Okay. And so I know in your application letter you say that your current work schedule for the past 7 years has been Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. Where were you working before now?
I have this place that I rent a chair off Memorial Boulevard, in that salon there. I do real estate as a primary income. This is just a kind of a hobby thing for me to do on the side. I've been doing it for several years, and it's not lucrative enough to keep renting into a spot. So that's the reason I was wanting to do this and to put a small place. As you can see, it's less than 200 square feet of space there. So, and then as far as the parking of backing out, I'm looking at them pulling in front of that window. There'll be a turnaround spot for them so that they won't be pulling out or backing out onto the street. I've taken that into consideration.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
One of the conditions mentions any signage. Are you planning on doing any sort of signage?
I'm not going to do a signage. The address is 1907 Jones, which is on the mailbox, and that will be the sign. The name of the business is 1907 Jones. Okay. So it will not change any outside appearance or anything of that nature.
Okay.
You said you were planning on, are you going to put concrete there next to that window so you'd have a turnaround? You said you was...
It's already there where the existing garage door is. That's where they back out and out of the garage and turn around. There's plenty of space to back out there, so if they pulled up there, they could still turn around.
Oh, okay.
Instead of backing out onto the street.
Okay.
All right. If no other questions, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll go ahead and open the floor for further discussion or motion.
Mr. Anthony, have you reviewed any previous applications or approvals in this neighborhood, or
I went through our archives just to find some other barbershop examples, and I don't recall any of those being in this particular neighborhood. There have been some in other parts of the city.
There was another barber shop, in my understanding, on the other side of their house for 20 years. I think the lady has, into assisted living or something.
Could you come up to the microphone, please?
My understanding is from the neighbors that there is a with a barber shop on the other side of them, and a lady had in her one-car garage the same situation for 20 years. She's now retired and living in assisted living, and the house is up for sale, is my understanding. So it'd be kind of the exact same setup as what she had also.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Rogers? From what I understand, Miss Mary is in assisted
Hey,
living.
Mr. Fletcher, let me say this.
Yes, sir.
The public hearing is we've closed it.
Yes, sir.
But we'll go ahead and reopen it for the purpose of, if that's all right with Mr. Ives, our counsel.
You may, the normal rule is speak once, but I think the chairman has the prerogative to allow someone to speak again if you choose to do so.
Okay, go ahead.
Miss Mary stopped operating that somewhere in the late 80s. She's in her 90s now, 93. It's been quite a while since she had that there. Well before my wife and I moved in, she was done with that. So
Okay, thank you.
You know, these can be tough to work through. As a home-based business, it sounds like what Mr. Redmond's proposing is on the low-impact side, although when there's, neighbors close by that aren't, that have different feelings of it, it makes it difficult. In the picture I'm looking at where the neighbor's bedroom is, there have been discussions of screening that. Would that help any? Is it, one car at a time? It could be one of those things. 3 days a week, might not even know, but I don't know if that helps any or where property lines are. But it's, I don't know, it's like I said, it's a tricky one for me.
What type of screening would be recommended by the staff in this situation?
Quite honestly, looking at it would be really difficult just because the driveway abuts the property line. So to do any kind of plantings or anything like that, you wouldn't have the space to do it without destroying probably a part of the driveway. And certainly we can't put the burden on the neighbor to do any screening.
If the driveway wasn't there, though, what would be the recommendation?
If the driveway wasn't there, I would recommend some mixture of trees and shrubs to sort of provide some visual relief from the neighbor's house. With it being there, I don't know what else you could do. You could there could be a fence there, but then that would subject the neighbors to 7 or 8 feet outside their window, having a tall, just looking at a wall of a fence. Mm-hmm. Those are typically the options that you consider when you're looking at screening.
I would agree with Mr. Young. This gets to be difficult. There's no question that my time on this board, that we have approved in-home businesses. However, I always felt that I would side on behalf of the neighbors if whether or not they felt like it was going to impact the character of their neighborhood, because that's one of the things that we should consider about issuing any kind of special use permits. So when there is people who oppose an application in a situation like this, that's where I lean towards, because they would probably have a better idea of how it would impact their neighborhood than I would. So I will be against this application.
You making a motion?
Well, I can, or if we want further discussion. If I don't see any further discussion, then I'll make a motion that we deny the application.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Redmond, your application has been denied. I think you heard from the board the general reasons why. I like Mr. Halliburton, Mr. Young, I think it's important if whenever you come up and you introduce yourself into a neighborhood and you want to do something commercially, it's absolutely critical, mission critical, you should get your neighbors on board with that first before coming to us. So when neighbors are opposed to it, like Mr. Halliburton said, man, they dictate what the character of the neighborhood is. And I'm familiar, I think we probably all are familiar with Jones Boulevard. And Mr. Fletcher's right, that is nothing but 100% residential through there for blocks and blocks and blocks. So I think people expect it to be preserved that way, and I think that's what the board obviously is inclined to do today, is continue to preserve that residential nature. So, all right, thank you, sir. All right, next is application B, Z15084 by Mr. Clyde Roundtree of Huddleston Steel Engineering, representing Family Worship Center. He's requesting a special use permit to allow expansion of the church in a single-family residential RS-15 district located at 3045 Memorial Boulevard. Mr. Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant wishes to make several changes to the Family Worship Center site at 3045 Memorial Boulevard. That requires them to amend their special use permit and basically get a new special use permit here today. The site is zoned RS-15, and it has been granted several special use permits for building and parking expansions in the past. Most recently, a special use permit was granted to a previous occupant of the building in 2012. That was for a child care facility that actually never came to fruition. Today's request for the amended special use permit is based on several proposed changes to the site, and I'm going to pull up an exhibit here, and we'll go through each of those individually. First is construction of a 3,360 square foot lobby area that would connect the Student Center, which is the building on the right in their exhibit. It would connect that building to the sanctuary or auditorium, which is the larger structure on the left. So if you look at the screen, this area in between, this is 3,360 square feet lobby area that's going to adjoin those buildings. Second, they're proposing a covered drop-off and pickup area, which would be in conjunction with this new lobby. So it's actually adjacent to the new lobby, right beside it. The third and fourth requests, or third and fourth items that they intend to do are construct covered walkways along the edge of both of those existing structures. This would allow people parking to stay safe from the elements as they make their way to the new lobby area. The fifth item is a new 80-space parking lot, which would be constructed to the south of the existing main parking area. And these 80 spaces, you'll see that with the new canopy area being built, that they're going to lose about somewhere around 12 spaces, existing spaces. So these 80 new spaces will offset those 12, as well as adding several dozen more. And the final part of the plan is for a connecting driveway adjacent to Memorial Drive. This would allow for, I think, better circulation of vehicles through their parking lot. Staff's primary concern when reviewing this was ensuring that the church was adequately parked. Since the sanctuary or auditorium itself is not being expanded, they're not required to add any more parking spaces. So we're very pleased to see in excess of 60 new spaces, even accounting for the 12 or so that they're going to lose with the canopy. The applicant does attest that all of the standards for special use permit and for institutional group assembly use will be met. Staff can answer any questions. We can also go over any photographs that the board would like. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Anthony. Any questions for Mr. Anthony?
I'm assuming that, and this may be a question for the applicant, that the look of these new additions will be in keeping with the existing structure?
Yeah, part of the dual purpose of this is
If
not
you
only
would,
to help.
state your name for us, please.
I'm sorry, my name is Rick Thurman with the Trinity Group. And I represent them where we're doing the architecture and construction management on the project. A couple of things. One is, what we're doing really helps the traffic flow of people through the space, as well as the automobile traffic, but also to improve the aesthetics of the building. You've got two buildings there, one built quite a bit earlier than the other one, two different architectural styles, and by putting that walkway all the way across the length, we'll be able to really tie those buildings together, create a more up-to-date look, and so we intend to improve the aesthetics of the property pretty significantly.
And Mr. Chairman, we have photographs of the two structures. They're included in your packet, but that's the rear structure that's currently used as the sanctuary for the church. And then that is that's what's used as a student life center now. And so, as the applicant addressed there, they are two very different and distinct styles. That photo sort of shows the gap between those two structures where this new lobby area would go.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Thurman. All right, then at this time, we'll go ahead and conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, if you would, please come forward. All right, seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for further discussion or motion.
If there's no further discussion, I'll make a motion that we approve the application, subject to any staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that application has been approved. And we'll now move on to our final application. It is Z15085 by Melissa George of Murfreesboro Self-Storage. She's requesting a special use permit to allow a self-service storage facility on property located in a commercial highway district at 4283 Old Salem Road. All right, Mr. Anthony, if you'd review that one for us, please.
Yes, sir. The applicant wishes to construct and operate a self-service storage facility at 4283 Old Salem Road, which is located on the southeast corner of Old Salem Road and Veterans Parkway. The property is currently zoned Highway Commercial, or CH, and it is surrounded by other CH zoned property that's mainly to the south, and then county property for the most part around it. The county property is zoned RM, which is medium density residential. Currently, there is an existing house and several accessory structures, which are visible in the photographs on the screen. Those are being removed. They may have already been removed by this time. I haven't been out there in a couple of weeks. The applicant wishes to construct a total of 7 buildings. 5 would be in the first phase, and then 2 additional, the centermost buildings. Those would come in a second phase. The office for the facility would be located in Building 1, which is along Old Salem Road. There will also be parking spaces there. Access to the site would be from Old Salem, and there would be a gate adjacent to the office that would ensure secure access to the storage buildings. The applicant is planning to install a 15-foot landscape buffer along the eastern edge of the property, which is adjacent to existing residential property. This 15-foot buffer exceeds the 10 feet that would be required as part of the special use permit, so we will gladly defer to the 15-foot Type D buffer. Draft building elevations have been included in your packets. Staff is going to work with the applicant during site plan review process to ensure that the facility's appearance does meet all of our city standards, and we're going to pay particular attention to the frontage along Veterans Parkway. The applicant attests that all of the standards for special use permit and self-service storage facility will be met, and staff will be happy to answer any questions or review any photographs.
Yeah, Mr. Jake, if you go through those elevations with us, please.
Absolutely. Looking just at an aerial photograph here, you can see the existing the house and the out structures here. Those will be going away. This is the site plan, site layout that the applicant has provided. The buildings that are going to be constructed initially will be these perimeter buildings. The internal buildings, labeled as buildings 5 and 6, those will come at a later time. We specifically asked for that just because it'll help the appearance of the site to go ahead and get the perimeter built out first.
Along Veterans Parkway, what sort of screening is present, if any?
Along Veterans Parkway?
You mentioned, I guess, the upper portion of that picture.
Yes,
was
it
the
says.
eastern side.
I'm sorry. So the 15-foot screening is along this side, so it's opposite Veterans Parkway. There's residential property there on the other side.
They just pulled it up.
Yes, show me that again.
They just now pulled it up.
Sure. The 15-foot screening would be along this side, whereas Veterans Parkway is down here. The screening would be here.
It's still showing some screening on Veterans Parkway in this site plan anyway.
Do you want to address that?
I'm Matt Taylor of SEC here in town, and yes, you're right on the sheet 5 of 5. I don't know if I would necessarily describe it as screening, but we have planned kind of front yard landscaping through there. Be a series of shade trees and shrubs. Really, we've kind of tried to group those together as well as pull those up close to the building so you get some foundation planting effect instead of just having kind of a straight run along the road there. So, but I'll be happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Thank you.
And those buildings are, that's a 42-foot setback off of Veterans there, so they're. And then you've got your excess right-of-way and your sidewalk and grass strip zone. So they're in the neighborhood of 50 to 55 feet off the road proper.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Did we just consider another storage complex in the same area?
We just had a whole meeting of nonstop storage facilities
Right.
a month or so ago. Yes, Kaysen, New Salem and Kaysen was one. There was another on, I can't remember, it was a cove off of
It was
St. Andrews.
There was an expansion. I think we did about 2 buildings off of St. Andrews Drive to an existing facility. Salem Glen Mini Storage, I think, is what we termed that one.
Okay.
Right behind the veterinary clinic.
Okay. Right.
It's a very popular and in-demand use in this area.
Well, if you just flip through
Sure.
these elevation pictures for us quickly.
So this would be a view from Old Salem Road looking southeast. This would include the office part of the complex as well as the gate that you can see there with the parking. You can see the edge of the parking down in the lower right-hand corner of that rendering. Another view from Old Salem Road looking southeast. Again, the office and the parking are present there. This would be a view from Veterans Parkway looking north. This does not show the landscaping that Mr. Taylor mentioned at this point. Another view of Veterans looking north toward Old Salem. This is a view from the intersection of Veterans and Old Salem looking to the southeast. So again, just for the perspective, the office and the parking area are here. Similar view. Similar view. And then these are photographs that staff took of the area showing the structures that will be demolished or removed. This is sort of the open field behind those structures. This is from the intersection of Old Salem and Veterans, showing what was on the ground at least a couple of weeks ago. And this is head-on from Old Salem, so you'd be looking to the southeast. Similar view.
All right. The If there's any other questions, we'll go ahead and conduct a public hearing. Anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, if you would, please come forward.
My name is John Jarrett. I live at 4625 Old Salem Road, Rockville, Tennessee. I own property that's probably west of Veterans Parkway, that's where the storage units will be built. And I thought, Ms. Anthony, you said there would not be a entrance from Veterans Parkway. The entrance would be from Old Salem.
Yes, that's what their site plan indicates, that the entrance exit would be on Old Salem.
And this one, that's, Old Salem is a narrow lane. Thought there may be a lot of traffic coming through there. Would wonder why they chose not to have a entrance on Veterans Parkway.
I think the applicant would probably be in a better position to address that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jarrett. Has this been through publication?
I don't recall it, but I can't remember what happened yesterday.
It's here first.
It was here first. See?
Matt, you want to speak to that?
That entrance was developed, one, in anticipation of planning staff, specifically traffic department, not wanting any, as few conflicts or access points on Veterans Parkway as possible. And so whenever we met with them, with Mr. Anthony as well as the rest of the departments, they were very much in favor of the single access point on Old Salem. And this portion of Old Salem, I think just about across our entire frontage has been improved previously. And I also believe that Veterans is a median divided section directly in front of this property. And so that obviously limits access. And with being a mini storage facility, access control is obviously a very key part to what they're offering as far as being a higher end facility. So they want to limit those access points to a keyed entryway, and you do that through a single access point.
That help, Mr. Jarrett? Okay. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against the application? This is, seeing none, then we'll declare the public hearing closed and open the floor for further discussion or motion.
I have a question before or anybody else makes a motion. Curious, Mr. Ives or Mr. Anthony, why we have a self-storage facility have to come as a special use permit in a commercial highway zone? Just in general, why?
I think the only one that's allowed by right is in heavy industrial, if I remember right. So every other one has to come here.
Because you would think.
Let me take a look at my chart here and see.
That might be something we want to review at a later date, especially as these go through a site plan approval. Some of these storage units look better than some of the commercial buildings that we're building in commercial highway zones.
That's what I was going to say. I think the theory of putting it in heavy industrial initially was because they just didn't look very good back years ago, but now they're making them so that they...
It used to be mostly metal.
Correct.
And now people are bricking them and using a lot of architectural treatment.
But that's just I'm sure we wouldn't be here if that wasn't the case, but I think that's something for us to review, at least on the planning commission level, as to that requirement. And if no one has any further discussion, I'll make a motion that we approve this application.
I'll second. I yield to you.
A motion and second.
Subject to any staff comments.
I was going to say.
Thank you.
Okay.
Agreed.
Sure. There were a few. Okay. Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That application has been approved.
Ken, he was correct. It is allowed as of right only in heavy industrial. And obviously, this chart was put together a few years ago, and that may very well be something, especially as we move a little forward with the Planning Commission of having more authority over design guidelines.
Right.
It may be something that we can handle at staff level rather than.
Sure.
If a heavy
one thing, I
industrial,
guess, if
I'm sorry. What if a heavy industrial wouldn't adjoin residential, where I guess this.
Rarely,
In this
anyway.
case, it's, the
Yeah.
highway does abut some residential.
Right. But then they're still required to have a certain type of buffer, no matter, because it's already
matter
come up.
where it is.
Yes, since it's a commercial zone, abutting residential, so. But anyway.
a good thing for us to look at.
All right.
All right, any staff reports or other business?
Not from me.
There being none, we're adjourned.